This is a story about the power of a dream flourishing where no one expects it, a dream born in the unlikeliest of places. Emma Clifford, the daughter of a dedicated school janitor in Portland, Oregon, has spent years fighting for her chance to touch the magic of music, a magic that many believed was unreachable for someone of her humble background. Her journey was fraught with challenges, sacrifices, and discouragement. But one fateful night would change everything and force even those who once laughed to fall silent before her talent. From a very young age, Emma had been enchanted by the sound of the violin. Despite growing up in a modest household, she clung fiercely to her dream of playing beautifully, transcending the limitations imposed by her circumstances. With a battered old violin bought at a yard sale for just $50, a relic that had seen better days and whose strings often snapped at the most inopportune moments, Emma practiced relentlessly. Every afternoon after school, while other children rushed home to play outside or watch television, she would remain in the nearly empty music classroom at her school. There, amid the dusty corners and creaking floorboards, she would spend 4 to 5 hours perfecting scales and rehearsing melodies, her small, calloused fingers dancing desperately over worn-out strings. In that modest classroom, the air was filled with a persistent, rhythmic shuffling of papers, the creak of wooden benches, and the occasional discordant sound from the aging instruments. It was a place where the historic echoes of forgotten concertos mingled with the hopeful whisper of a young girl's ambition. Yet not everyone saw the spark in her eyes. Mrs. Jenkins, the school music teacher, often remarked in a dismissive tone, "You have no ear for music," as if Emma's determination could be so easily quenched by a single phrase. But Emma kept on, inspired by the memory of her late grandmother's gentle guidance and the secret hope that one day she would prove them all wrong. As the summer break loomed on the horizon, fate dealt Emma a cruel twist. The school administration, in a misguided attempt at humor, forced her enrollment in a charity concert scheduled for the first week back after the holidays. "Let the janitor's daughter perform," they had joked, expecting a farcical display that would be quickly forgotten. The idea was meant to humiliate her dreams, to reduce her passion into a punchline. The words echoed like a death knell in the corridors of Emma's heart, yet also ignited within her a quiet resolve. She realized that this could be the moment to transform ridicule into recognition. In the dim light of her modest rehearsal space, Emma painstakingly tuned her fragile violin. Her eyes, reflecting both trepidation and hope, fixed on the instrument as if it were the key to a long-awaited door. The worn wood of the violin and the delicate, frayed strings told a story of persistence and resilience. She lit a small candle on a windowsill beside her practice bench, its flickering glow casting dancing shadows across her determined face. Every note she had learned, every scale and arpeggio that she had repeated until her fingers ached, now converged into the silent promise of a breakthrough. With the echo of Mrs. Jenkins's dismissive words still lingering in her memories and the taunts of her peers echoing in her ears, Emma took a deep, shuddering breath. Tonight, as she prepared for the charity concert, a performance intended to be a mere sideshow, she would do more than play. She would let her music speak, transforming scorn into awe. Clutching her battered violin, Emma stepped away from the mirror in the empty classroom, her resolve hardening with every silent beat of her hopeful heart. After the long summer break finally came to a close, Emma Clifford's life shifted back into a rhythm of hope and trepidation. The days grew shorter as winter in Portland hinted at its impending arrival, and with them came the scheduled charity concert that Emma dreaded, yet secretly yearned for. The event was set to take place in the school auditorium, a space barely large enough to hold the cramped, echoing practice room she had known since childhood. Now the auditorium was transformed, decorated for a formal performance with elegant drapes, soft lighting, and meticulously arranged rows of seats that filled with a mixed crowd of skeptical teachers, curious students, and well-wishers. In the chaotic backstage area, Emma prepared herself for the performance that everyone had anticipated would be a public spectacle of failure. Dressed in a modest, simple dress that had been carefully laundered and pressed, she still exuded a quiet strength. Her battle-worn violin lay nestled in a worn leather case, its surface marred by time yet imbued with the memories of countless solitary practice sessions. As the stage manager hurried past her with whispered instructions and a flurry of hurried steps, Emma gathered the last bits of courage and checked her reflection in a small, cracked mirror hanging on the wall. She recalled how the harsh voices in the empty classroom and the biting disdain of her music teacher, Mrs. Jenkins, had once almost silenced her dreams. But now, that same determination glimmered behind her eyes, lending her an inner fire. Outside her makeshift dressing room, the hallways buzzed with sounds of reluctant excitement and derisive laughter. A group of teachers, known more for their snide remarks than for nurturing talent, continued to exchange incredulous glances. "Can you imagine the janitor's daughter actually playing a concert?" one whispered as they passed by. Their words, laced with condescension and amusement, only fueled Emma's resolve. Despite the barbs, she devoted herself entirely to her preparation. Every note she had practiced, every scale meticulously hammered into memory over endless after-school sessions, echoed in her mind as she mentally rehearsed her set list, one that featured a blend of classical arrangements and her own heartfelt improvisations. The atmosphere in the auditorium itself was a study in contrasts. Under the muted light of elegantly arranged series of spotlights, the space glowed softly. The faint scent of polished wood and fresh flowers mixed with a whiff of anticipation. There was a gentle rustling from the folding of concert programs and low, almost imperceptible murmurs among the arriving guests. Despite the grand setting, every seat held an undercurrent of skepticism. Whispers of, "Let's see if she lives up to the hype," floated on the cool air, often delivered with sneers from teachers who had never believed in her potential. Moments before the scheduled start, Emma's heart pounded in her chest like an erratic drumbeat. In a quiet corner, she clutched a faded photograph of her parents, David, the dedicated janitor whose tireless work had always grounded her, and Linda, whose warm, encouraging smile had been a constant source of strength. Their faces were her anchor, a reminder that her struggle was driven by more than just her own ambition. It was a fight for dignity and opportunity. Then, as the final preparations were completed, the stage manager announced that it was time for performers to enter the stage. In that instant, as the heavy curtains began to part, Emma took a deep breath. With her violin case firmly in hand, she stepped into the backstage light, a moment of both vulnerability and fierce determination. The distant entries of hushed applause and anticipatory whispers from the audience echoed through the halls. Even though teachers' voices earlier had been laced with mockery and doubt, this was her moment to reclaim her dream. As she walked towards the stage, each step seemed to beat in time with the silent promise of every hour of hard practice poured into her craft. The stage was set. The soft glow of the spotlights, the shimmering facade of the auditorium, and the heavy weight of countless skeptical eyes all bore witness to the moment when Emma Clifford, the janitor's daughter who dared to dream, would transform ridicule into triumph. With the curtain now fully drawn, everything fell silent for a breath. Emma paused at the edge of the stage, gathering her resolve. The upcoming performance, a delicate yet powerful rendition of Bach's Chaconne, with personal improvisations that told the story of her struggles and resilience, would determine whether she could defy the expectations that had haunted her for so long. And with that, in that crucial, heart-pounding moment, Emma stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the spotlight. As the heavy curtain swung open, Emma Clifford stepped onto the stage with a quiet, determined grace. The auditorium, bathed in the soft glow of focused spotlights, fell into an anticipatory hush. Every eye in the room, once brimming with mockery or indifferent expectation, now fixed on her. Clutching her cherished, time-worn violin, she took her position at center stage. There was a charged stillness in the air, the sort of silence where even one's own heartbeat seems amplified. For a moment, Emma closed her eyes, letting the weight of every whispered doubt and every scoff from her past fuel her inner resolve. She recalled the countless hours spent in the nearly empty music classroom, her fingers aching from repetitive practice, the lonely nights when the sound of her battered violin was her sole companion. All of that hardship coalesced into a single, luminous moment. Tonight, she would let her music speak for itself. With a graceful bow and a measured inhale, Emma began to draw the bow across the strings, setting the stage for her rendition of Bach's Chaconne. At first, the notes emerged softly, a delicate, haunting melody that echoed through the room like a secret whispered on a cool summer night. Every stroke of her bow was imbued with the quiet passion of a heart that had long survived ridicule. Her fingers moved with fluid precision along the fingerboard, coaxing out the rich, sonorous tones hidden within the classical masterpiece. As she progressed, the melody evolved. Amid the rigid elegance of Bach's original composition, Emma began to weave in her own improvisations, a spontaneous burst of soulful blues that spoke of grit, longing, and undeniable hope. The transformation was breathtaking. What began as a well-practiced interpretation gradually shifted into something wholly unique, an intimate conversation between Emma and her instrument. Each note was sharpened by years of isolation, every pause filled with the weight of persistence. The piece swelled, and the interplay between classical structure and raw, impassioned innovation sent shivers through the silent audience. The atmosphere in the auditorium became almost tangible. The soft rustling of program pages, the occasional ripple of a breath held in anticipation, and the collective leaning forward of the listeners, all bore witness to the moment. Emma's eyes, now open and glistening, reflected not only the stage lights, but also the inner fire that had sustained her through years of setbacks. In that very instant, the auditorium was transformed into a sanctified space where every note mingled with the energy of countless untold dreams. Backstage, a few of the skeptical teachers, including Mrs. Jenkins, who had once dismissed her talent, now watched in awe. Their expressions softened from derision to wonder. Even among the students, whispers of admiration replaced earlier snickers. The tension grew with every rising crescendo as Emma's performance journeyed deeper into the piece. Her improvisations climaxed in unexpected flourishes, a rapid, impassioned sequence blending the stately grief of Baroque strains with the raw emotion of blues scales. Deep within the crowd, a teacher's eyes filled with remorse, while a few students exchanged tearful glances, their faces lit by the pure power of her music. Each string vibrated with the echoes of her struggle, a struggle against societal expectations and the weight of a background that many deemed limiting. With every carefully sustained note, Emma defied the cynics, transforming the once derisive tone in the room into one of reverence. As Emma arrived at the final movement, the subtle improvisations grew bolder, weaving an ethereal tapestry that showcased her technical mastery and her soulful resilience. The haunting prelude of the final chord began, a sound so powerful and delicate that it paused time itself. The audience collectively held its breath, as if waiting for the soul of the music to make its final declaration. In that suspended moment, before the completion of her performance, the auditorium seemed to stretch into infinity. Emma's poised expression, illuminated by the soft spotlight, promised that her story was far from over. Every note was a testament to her perseverance, every pause a silent challenge to the cynics who had once doubted her. In a moment that seemed to suspend time itself, Emma's bow landed on the final chord with a hushed yet immensely powerful finality. The sound vibrated across the auditorium, echoing against the high ceilings and marbled walls, a culmination of years of solitary practice and unyielding determination. As the last note resonated, an overwhelming silence enveloped the space, a silence pregnant with emotion, awe, and the shattering of long-standing doubts. Then, as if released from a spell, the silence exploded into a wave of spontaneous applause and cheers. The once skeptical crowd erupted in approval, their voices mingling with the soft clink of fallen programs and rustled clothing. Tears glistened in the eyes of many viewers, and the air buzzed with the tangible energy of vindication. For the first time, the very people who had once doubted her emerged in a chorus of heartfelt admiration. Backstage, even those who had mocked her efforts earlier, teachers and staff alike, were left speechless. Mrs. Jenkins, whose sneers had once belittled Emma's abilities, now sat with an open mouth and trembling hands, overwhelmed by the raw beauty and technical mastery of the performance. A few of her colleagues exchanged looks of chagrin, realizing that their earlier dismissal had been gravely mistaken. At the front of the auditorium, a cluster of well-dressed parents and students began showering Emma with flowers, offering roses and lilies that symbolized renewal and hope. A gentle flurry of petals was tossed onto the stage as the audience, acting as one, expressed their adulation. Every bloom symbolized not just beauty, but the courage it took to defy expectations and rise above adversity. Among the stunned onlookers, the school director, Mr. Griffin, rose slowly from his seat near the back of the hall. His usually impassive face now radiated an emotion that was part admiration, part regret for the harsh words that had been said by those who doubted Emma. He made his way to the stage with measured steps, his presence commanding attention. The murmurs among the crowd shifted as everyone watched him approach. "Emma," he said, his voice sincere and steady, "your performance today has redefined what we believed was possible. I stand here, not simply as a director, but as someone who now sees that true talent and perseverance will always outshine prejudice." His words, delivered with heartfelt conviction, resonated deeply with the assembled audience, turning the moment into a celebration of triumph. Emma's eyes softened as she saw the director's expression, an unexpected beacon of support. "Thank you, sir," she managed softly, still catching her breath and smiling humbly as she accepted the bouquet of flowers, clutched tightly in her hands. The applause swelled again, buoying her spirit and confirming that her years of struggle had, at long last, borne fruit. In that cinematic moment, every detail of the auditorium, the shimmering lights overhead, the subtle aroma of fresh flowers mixed with the lingering scent of polish, the reflective gleam of the marble floor, came together to form a tableau of transformation. The hard-won victory was not merely about one performance. It was a declaration that dreams, when relentlessly pursued, can change hearts and minds. Teachers who had once scoffed in private now wore expressions of humble admiration, their inner thoughts a silent apology for underestimating her. Older students looked up at Emma with a profound respect that would undoubtedly inspire them for years to come. And Mr. Griffin's acknowledgement, delivered so publicly and earnestly, promised a reconsideration of policies and attitudes in the school. As the stage lights dimmed slowly, the applause gradually subsided into a low, lingering murmur of unity and hope. Emma stood in the middle of the stage, bathed in soft spotlight, with flowers scattered around her like tokens of victory, a living symbol that passion and perseverance could indeed overcome all obstacles. As the revelatory applause surged through the auditorium, the standing ovation grew almost overwhelming. Every seat in the room filled with enthusiastic clapping and resounding cheers as the audience acknowledged Emma Clifford's breathtaking performance. The collective sound was like a tidal wave of approval, washing away years of doubt and derision while affirming that her talent and perseverance had finally prevailed. In the midst of the standing ovation, teachers who had once dismissed her potential looked on in stunned silence, their earlier smug expressions washed away by genuine admiration. Mrs. Jenkins, previously scornful of Emma's aspirations, hesitated for a long moment before stepping forward, visibly moved. In a trembling voice that betrayed both regret and newfound respect, she approached the stage and said, "Emma,
I'm sorry.
I truly underestimated you." Her words, spoken softly but earnestly, broke the rigid distance that had separated mentor and student, and the murmurs of approval grew louder. Other faculty members joined in. One by one, they offered heartfelt acknowledgments. "You've shown us what it means to have faith in a dream," remarked a teacher from the music department, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Even some of the skeptical administrators who had looked down on Emma now wore expressions of remorse and admiration. The air was filled with a sense of unity and transformation, as if the entire school had been reborn through her performance. As the applause began to subside, Mr. Griffin, the school director, stepped back up to the stage. His usually measured tone now carried an edge of emotion. "Today," he announced with a deep and resonant voice, "we witnessed more than a musical performance. We witnessed the triumph of resilience over prejudice, the beauty of a dream that refused to be drowned out by cynicism. Emma, Your courage has inspired not only your fellow students but all of us who believed that greatness must always be nurtured regardless of background. His words hung in the air as the audience listened, rapt and attentive. Emma, still standing at the center of the stage bathed in the soft glow of the spotlight, let the director's words sink in. With modest humility, she smiled gently, her eyes reflecting both relief and the quiet joy of a dream fulfilled. "Thank you," she breathed, "for giving me the chance to share my heart with you all." Her simple gratitude resonated powerfully, and the applause rose again, slower this time. A warm, lingering tribute to the delicate beauty of overcoming obstacles. In a brief interlude after the applause, the atmosphere in the auditorium became entirely momentous. Groups of students hugged each other, sharing tears of happiness and disbelief. The once dismissive whispers of the day had transformed into a chorus of hope, unity, and encouragement. Even those who had scoffed earlier quietly wiped away tears as they recognized the magnitude of what had truly happened. Emma's performance was no longer just a contest of musical skill. It had become a beacon of inspiration for every person who had ever been marginalized or told that their dreams were unreachable. Behind the scenes, teachers and staff gathered to discuss immediate changes, plans to integrate more inclusive practices into the school's curriculum, and a renewed effort to support every student, regardless of their station in life. The reverberations of Emma's performance promised to spark a gradual, far-reaching transformation in the school community. The air was thick with the promise of a new era. Every note from her performance had sown seeds of change that would blossom in the years to come. As the final applause waned, the auditorium lights dimmed gradually, casting long shadows that mingled with the soft glow from the stage. Emma, absorbing the moment, felt a gentle warmth spread through her, a realization that her relentless struggle had not been in vain. Standing there, surrounded by the collective admiration of students, teachers, and staff, she felt empowered to carry this victory beyond the walls of the school and into the rest of her life. With the overwhelming support of the auditorium behind her, the scene was set for the next chapter of her journey, one that would see her return home, her heart laden with triumph and her spirit ready to embrace a future filled with endless possibilities. After the last echo of applause had faded and the auditorium lights gradually dimmed, Emma Clifford, her heart still resonating with triumph, gathered the bouquet of roses and lilies that had been showered upon her. With delicate hands still trembling slightly from the intensity of her performance, she stepped off the stage and made her way through the hushed corridors of the auditorium complex. The sound of her footsteps on the polished floor merged with the soft murmur of departing guests, each step affirming that her long and arduous journey had finally borne fruit. Outside the auditorium, the crisp night air of Portland embraced her as she walked toward the modest, familiar building that housed her family's little apartment. The city lights shimmered like distant stars, reflecting off rain-washed streets as she moved with a measured pace, a silent acknowledgement of the monumental shift that had just taken place. Memories of endless hours spent in the sparse music classroom, the sting of dismissive jokes, and the relentless echoes of doubt mingled with the night's cool serenity, each one now transformed into a testament of her unyielding will. When Emma finally reached home, the door creaked open to reveal her father David, the hard-working janitor whose calloused hands had always kept the school clean, and her mother Linda, whose warm eyes and soft smiles had uplifted Emma through the darkest times. In an instant, the small entryway filled with light and emotion. David's weathered face broke into a proud, tearful smile as he stepped forward and enveloped his daughter in a heartfelt embrace. "Emma, I'm so proud of you," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion, as if the pride he felt had been waiting a lifetime to be released. Linda rushed forward, her arms outstretched as she gathered Emma in an embrace of unconditional love. "My darling, you've proven that no dream is too small," she said, her voice gentle yet strong. "We always believed in you, even when no one else would." Their embrace was a quiet chorus of love and vindication, a moment where every sacrifice, every aching note, and every whispered rejection melted into the overwhelming warmth of familial support. Emma set down the bouquet on a small table near the doorway, a festive contrast to the simplicity of the apartment. and her eyes glistened with a mixture of joy and relief. As she hung up her well-worn coat, she allowed herself a moment to reflect on the journey that had led her to this transformative night. In her mind, the echoes of the auditorium still played, the brilliant fusion of Bach's Chaconne with her own soulful improvisations, the stunned silence of those who had mocked her, and the resounding acknowledgement of her talent that had finally silenced every doubter. Sitting down at a worn kitchen table illuminated by the soft glow of a single overhead lamp, Emma took a deep, steadying breath. In that quiet moment, a stark contrast to the electrifying applause of moments before, she unlocked the safe of her memories. The struggles of daily practice, the contagion of pessimistic remarks, and the solitary hours spent mastering each note coalesced into a profound understanding. Her dream was not only real, but it had also the power to change minds and uplift those around her. Outside in the cool Portland night, the city buzzed with whispers of inspiration and transformation. Neighbors, former skeptics now converted, and even strangers on social media celebrated Emma's performance as a beacon of hope and resilience. Her triumphant return home was not only a personal victory, but also a harbinger of change, a symbol that talent and perseverance could overcome even the cruelest of prejudices. With the tender embrace of her parents still lingering in her heart, Emma smiled softly, filled with quiet determination. She knew that this was only the beginning of her journey, a journey that would inspire others to believe in themselves, despite the odds stacked against them. What do you think is the most important lesson from Emma's journey? From endless struggle to a triumphant night on stage. Have you ever experienced the transformation that comes from believing in your own dreams against all adversity? Write your opinion in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. I hope you enjoyed this story. Leave a comment, sharing your thoughts about it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new and equally exciting stories. See you in the next video.